welcome back to another video. Today I am impromptu making something. I definitely didn't have a plan for this. I think we're all really hyped up about the Barbie movie, I guess. When I saw that the movie was coming out and then a lot of people started making outfits and like cosplays and stuff, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to make something to wear to go see the movie. You know, I thought, oh, it's just, the movie's in July, I have time. And time is just flying by this year. I don't know what happened. Like, you blink and a whole month is gone. It's next week. And I was like, oh, I don't have time now. Forget about it. It doesn't matter. I don't really have any ideas. I probably don't have enough fabric that I want to use that's like proper Barbie pink. And then I had an idea. I was like, well, I know it's not that much fabric, but I maybe could make a little top out of it. It would be just a little hint of Barbie, right? The idea was to make this like retro little top that I've had. The pattern, I kid you not, for like 4 years. I have never tried it because I just never got around to it. So I just came into my craft room, got the fabric out, and lo and behold, first of all, this is the fabric. I think it's definitely synthetic. Because it feels like lining a little bit, but it's also like quite thick. It has some sun spots, you can see, because I've had this fabric before the pandemic, for sure. Like, I've had this fabric, and it already was old fabric. I bought it secondhand at a flea market. And turns out, I had a little note to myself saying that I have 2 meters of this. So I was like, oh my god, 2 meters, I can actually make a dress or something. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to make a co-ord. I've been seeing everyone make these. So this is the top that I wanted to make, and this is like the one that I was telling you about. Then I thought, what about shorts? Right? It'd be super cute. These are the Eucalyptus shorts by Mood Fabrics. They're free. I've made these before. The only problem that I have with these, am I talking really loud? Their whole measurements, their whole like thing is in the imperial system, which I do not understand. And so I don't know inches, you know, I don't know. But I really wanted to try them again. The other thing that I don't love about these shorts is that they are a little bit short and they ride up a little bit. So I am thinking of like lengthening these a little bit. I think we're gonna get to cutting. This pattern for the blouse, the little top, it asks for a 55 centimeter zipper. I think that it's like zipped all down the back. I don't want to do that. So what I'm thinking is actually would be super cute and very vintage is to add buttons. Hopefully get to use some really cute pink buttons that I have. Check that I have the ribbon and the buttons now, because obviously I have to do the ribbon. The ribbon is set into the darts, which means that I have to decide on the ribbon like quite early on in the blouse making situation, and I have to decide on the buttons like much later on. So I'm thinking that I want to match them now. So if I need to go and run to the store, I can do that before I start and have like everything match. Okay, so it seems that my button collection in the pink colorway is absolutely abysmal. All of my ribbon like is very hot pink. I was thinking like a baby pink and then a baby pink button to kind of offset all of this really like bright pink. I don't know, I was just thinking something else. We're gonna go to the craft store and get some buttons and possibly thread, definitely some ribbon and buttons. So I probably should take a little swatch of my fabric. So I got a few things. I want to show you what I got. So for buttons, I got these. They were the only pig buttons that they had that weren't like in a set pack of like a million other buttons. They're like a nice baby pink, and that's kind of the vision, you know. There's 10 in here. I need probably 8 or 9, so that's great. I have an extra button, goes into the jar. Then for trims, this is where it started getting really exciting. So I spotted this one. All of these are 100% polyester. It has like a bordery anglaise or like eyelet kind of vibe. Like, I don't know, I thought it was super cute. It has a nice little edge, like a nice little border. But then I thought, okay, what if I don't like the way this looks and then I have to come back? So I also got some regular, it matches perfectly. It has the same texture, and I don't know. I just thought it'd be nice to have options, and you know, I can go crazy with trim if I want to. And then I got some rickrack. I thought that this might look cute like on the edge of the sleeve. The edge of the sleeve, or like around the neckline, maybe at the hem. I don't know, I just thought it'd be cute to add a little extra something. I want this to be like heavily inspired. Like I want you to look at this and be like, wow, that's a Barbie outfit, right? So I thought that this would be really cute to add. So I saw the pearls, like little itty bitty pearls. And my thought was this would be very cute if I want to add some embroidery or if I want to add like a little something something. Kind of lost my mind, and I got these sequins that are like multicolored and iridescent flowers. And if I don't use them for this project, they'll be just like a fun thing to have in my stash. I also got some baby pink sequins, and last but not least, I got some aluminum wire. This is 2mm. The idea for this is that I'm going to be making a hat. Exciting stuff. Okay, let's get to it.
I'm just putting the things I bought away and realizing shortly that my fabric is way too wrinkly to be cut out from properly. So yeah, I went ahead and ironed it off camera, and now I'm going to start cutting out my pieces. At this point, I realized that I wanted to add a facing to my top, so I just traced the kind of neckline of the front and backs and, you know, made a facing pattern. And now I went ahead and added a 5cm extra to my opening edges of the back, so made them a little bit bigger for my buttons and buttonholes. I'm keeping everything on grain, but I am playing a little bit of, you know, pattern puzzles, pattern Jenga, I don't know, puzzling things out properly so that I get the most out of my fabric. And, you know, wherever things are, for example, I'm tracing my hat brim that I normally cut on the fold, but here I didn't, just so that I could use that little bit of fabric. And now for the shorts, again, I'm trying to get the most out of this, but then I realized that I was going to add length to the leg, so I couldn't do it this way. And yeah, we do need 4 of the waistbands, so I'm tracing 3 times. They're all going to be cut on the fold for this instance. You don't have to be, but this is just, again, to maximize my fabric usage. And I try to be creative like that with how I cut my fabric and how I pin things, as long as I'm keeping things on grain and kind of, you know, keeping that in mind. But I do try to be creative where I place my pattern, just to get the most out of my fabric, because fabric is an expensive commodity. And yeah, I'm also going to be adding a 5cm border or extra length to both the front and the back of my shorts. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut out all my pattern pieces and then transfer any markings that I need to transfer. And yeah, get everything ready to start sewing. My favorite method of marking is using a heat erasable pen, like the Frixion ones. They're very popular right now, and they're really useful, I think. So that's what I like to use the most. But if that's not possible for whatever reason, either it's something that is not going to show up on the fabric, or like there might be a few reasons why it doesn't show up, so I might use tailor's chalk or, you know, tailor's tacks, stitch marking sometimes, depending on what it is. Every situation is different, so depending on the situation and the fabric and everything, I might even use several methods in one garment. Then I cut out however much ribbon the pattern told me to, I later found out that this tape measure that I'm using has extended and is no longer very accurate. Anyway, so then I put down the ribbon, and then I tried it with the rickrack on top because I just had an idea, but I did not like how that looked, so I ended up going with just the plain ribbon. I did move it up from the original placing that that the pattern suggested. And the way you make the bow is you mark at 9 centimeters and then at 12 centimeters from the 9 centimeter mark, and you stitch that across the ribbon on those markings. And then you make it so that the stitching is on top of each other. It's hard to explain with words, but I think you can see it how I did that. And then you cut another length of ribbon, I think like 8 centimeters or something like that. And I just burned the edges and put it around to kind of, finish the bow a little bit better. And I didn't understand what the instructions wanted me to do, so I just slip stitched it close at the back. It's not going to be visible, so it's just really to secure that in place. I also realized that the fabric had a small rip in this area, so I placed the ribbon in a way that would hide that and started pinning my darts, getting ready to get the ends of the bow tucked into the darts. And then I guess I skipped a bunch of footage. I don't know. Either my camera died or something. So I sewed the darts, pressed them, all that nice stuff. I also have darts in the back, and then I pinned the side and shoulder seams and stitched them down, pressed them. Actually, I serged the edges and then I pressed them. And then I took this opportunity of my iron being on to apply the interfacing to the facings, both the back facings and the front. I also gave that a little press just to get that crease out. I think I'm using Vilene Vliezline F220. That's my favorite interfacing to use, really. And then I also went ahead and serged the edges that are going to be like the bottom edges of the facings, just to make it easier in the future. And because I like to do things in batches wherever I can, I also went ahead and finished my center back seams, because obviously then I'm going to do buttonholes and buttons and all that, and I just feel like it'd be easier to do it now. So then, stitched my facings at the shoulders, finished that seam on the serger, and then give it a nice press with the iron. Then I took this over to the mannequin just to have a little look at how it was looking, at where the kind of button placket was sitting. And, if I wanted more space, I wanted less space, how it was all looking. So yeah, here I am just prepping my buttons, or my button placket. This is a little bit blurry, I'm sorry about that. But basically I folded over the 5 centimeters that I had added earlier. And I pinned that down. Then I pressed it, opened it up, added some interfacing. And after I'd added the interfacing, I folded it back over and gave it a nice press again, and it was ready to go. And repeat on the other side. Then I tried it on myself and realized that the neckline was way too high. So I decided to remove 2.5 centimeters from my neckline and see if I liked it at that point, or if I wanted to remove more in the future. Decided to, go slow before I ruined everything. So I removed it from both the facings and the, the top that I was making. So yeah, 2.5 centimeters all around, cut that off, and then pinned my facings to my top with right sides together, matching, the shoulder seams, and stitched that down. And when you're working, especially with curved seams, don't be scared to, pin the living heck out of it. Just put pins in there. Make sure that it's not going anywhere and everything is exactly where you want it to be. That's what the pins are for. And then, yes, I do sew over my pins. Don't judge me too hard. So far, I have never broken a needle with this. I have broken needles on zippers and on like really thick fabric when I've had, I was already due to get rid of the needle. I have bent needles on zippers as well, but I've never actually broken a needle on a pin. or broken a pin either. I've bent a few, but never broken. Anyway, so after I stitched that down, I serged it and I pressed the seam allowance into or over onto the facing, and I'm gonna go ahead and give that a little understitching just to make sure that it all stays good and in place. And after that, I'm gonna press it back over or under, I guess, into its correct location. Now that my facings were all nice and neat, I realized that the ribbon keeps, or like the bow keeps like moving around, and it was really annoying me, more because of how, you know, when I'm sewing, it just keeps moving. So I tacked it down with some matching thread, and while I was at it, I also tacked down the facings down at the shoulder seams and the back opening edges. I gave that a little slip stitch as well. I know realistically we should do sleeves next, but I did buttonholes next. I find that it's hard to maneuver fabric when you're doing buttonholes, and why would you have more fabric under there? Like, it doesn't, I don't know. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, so I did buttonholes first. I marked down where I want them to be, and then at the very bottom of the top, where I wasn't even sure this was going to be a proper buttonhole or if I was going to turn up this into the hem allowance, I did make a test kind of buttonhole so that I could check that the size that I was making would fit my button. And then I did mark where I wanted them to go and how big I needed them to be. I like marking my buttonholes like very specifically and very well before I make them. Once I'd made the buttonholes, I used them to mark out where the buttons needed to go. And I didn't stitch them right away because I realized that it would make hemming harder. So whilst I decided how I wanted to hem it and how much I wanted to remove from the hem, and kind of like gave that a think over, because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the bottom of the top and what length I wanted to make it. So then I went ahead and put the sleeves together at that point. Actually, I cut some rickrack first, and then I, put the sleeve, closed the sleeve under the arm, finished the seam and pressed, and then I serged the raw edge of the sort of the hem of the sleeve, and I then folded that up, added some rickrack to the inside, and stitched the rickrack as I was stitching, sort of hemming the sleeve, and that way when you fold it right side out, you see a kind of scalloped edge of rickrack along the sleeve. And then I also hemmed the bottom of the top. I serged it first, and then I just turned it up once and and stitched that down and then pressed. And last but certainly not least, it was time to add the sleeves to the top. So just pin those in place. I was pretty sure I was going to have some leftover sort of ease in those sleeves, because I don't like to do the whole thing like where you ease stitch the sleeve and kind of make it so that there's no like tucks or anything. I like to gather all of that ease into the top or the shoulder seam and like make a little tuck or a box pleat or a little gather. So I like to use that as a kind of embellishment, and that is what I did here. I did a little box pleat. Okay, so for the shirts, first thing first, we have to make up the pockets and attach them to the fronts of the fronts, I guess. So basically this pocket, you stitch the kind of shaped area, and then you fold the pocket over on itself, and that's how you get the pocket. You don't cut 4 pockets like you usually would. Anyway, so I also added some rickrack to this because I thought it would look super cute. And I thought I was going to add it kind of at this stage and like sandwiched in between the pocket and the outer fabric. But it turned out that I didn't like the way this was looking, and it just wasn't working out how I thought it would. I just wasn't confident that this was going to look good. So what I did was I removed the rickrack at this point and I just stitched that like normal. And then when I turned it over, then I top stitched and added the rickrack on the inside of the pocket. So it still looks like it's sandwiched in between, but it isn't. It's just kind of sitting on the inside of the pocket. Next, we're going to be closing up the pocket and finishing all of those seams. And then we're going to pin and sew the kind of curved crotch area. That's not the official name, but I can't remember the official name. Doesn't matter. We're going to sew that, finish the seam, press that in place, and then we're going to stitch the waistbands together on one side. And on that same side, we're going to stitch the side seams, so like the leg of the shorts. And this is going to be the opposite side where you want the zipper to go. So if you want the zipper on your left, you're going to sew up your right and vice versa. I chose to have the zipper on my right. I just find that more comfortable. So I stitched up the left side. And while we're here, we're also going to be stitching up the center seam. So like the in between the legs part, I guess. And then obviously we finish everything in the serger, press, and then it's time to add our waistband. Make sure that the side seams are matching up. And then we're going to press that up, the seam allowance up into the waistband after we've stitched it down and finished the seam on the serger. And I actually am also going to take the time while I'm here to press up the seam allowance on the also the bottom end, so like where it's going to be attached to the shorts of the spare like lining waistband. I also picked out a zipper out of my collection. The closest was like a baby pink zipper, so that's what I went with. So I used my zipper foot and pressed the zipper open a little bit before stitching it down. And then I attached the lining waistband, or kind of the waistband facing to the waistband with right sides together. And I slip stitched it closed, even though I didn't get it on camera because my camera died and I didn't realize. So here we are when I realized that my camera had died and I had already done quite a bit of progress on the shorts. So basically I attached the waistband. I also stitched it, like slip stitched all around, so including around the zipper and the bottom edge of the whole thing closed, and then I top stitched it on the sewing machine. For the hem of the shorts, I evened it out because on one side it was longer than the other, so I just kind of made it all even. And then I serged the raw edges and I folded it over once and stitched some rickrack like I did with the sleeves on the top. For the hat, I went ahead and interfaced both the facing, or the lining, and the outer fabric, and then I also cut out some traditional sewn-in interfacing and basted that in place to what was going to be the outer fabric of both the kind of circular top of the hat and the rectangle, which is going to be the rim, or the kind of, yeah, the rim of the hat. Then I stitched the short ends of those rectangles for the side of the hat together, and I pressed each one of them open. And then all that's left to do is to stitch your top of the hat, so the circle to the rectangle that you just sewed shut. And I like to pin that down quite neatly and yeah, stitch it closed and try to press the edges as well as I can. Yeah, do the same for the lining. Then I used my jewelry pliers and the wire that I showed you to cut out a length of wire that is a little bit bigger than the hat, and then I will stitch that into the seam allowance of the top. So where I just stitched the circle to the rectangle, I like to kind of tuck the wire under there. That way it just is really secure, it's easier to stitch down, and also it's less likely that it'll poke out and like stab me in the head, I guess. I used a lot of clips and pins at this point to try and get things to stay put. And yeah, I just put on some YouTube to watch while I was doing this because it is quite slow work. And then I repeated that for the bottom edge of the hat. And I just fold the seam allowance in over the wire, and I also fold in the seam allowance on the lining so that when I actually tuck the lining into the final hat, I guess, it is easier to just slip stitch that closed. And then I wanted to add some decoration, so I played around with a few ribbon settings, but I ended up deciding to do one length of rickrack all around the perimeter or the circumference of the hat, and then to make a matching bow that to the top to add to the back of the hat and kind of hide the seam allowance and hide that seam of joining the rickrack as well. And to attach the rickrack, I basically just did a stitch, kind of like a back stitch, but not really, like more between a running stitch and a back stitch. I'm doing it now. So basically I'm just going into the rickrack and then coming back out from the side of the hat. So it's stitched all the way through all of the thicknesses. And I actually made the stitches line up to the like grooves of the rickrack so they would be less visible. And then when I added the bow, I tried to hide my stitches under the kind of little folds of the bow and stuff to make it super secure but not super visible. Okay, we're really close to being done now. So then I inserted my lining into the hat with wrong sides together, and I folded it because it turned out that I had too much seam allowance in there. So I just folded it down so that it matched perfectly. It was totally flush, and I added a little bit of very small ribbon to the sides so that I could then tie some elastic through that. It would just make elastic easier to replace, and if I want to use like bobby pins or something to secure the hat, I can. And yeah, I just slip stitched that closed all around, and then my hat was finished.
So yeah, I'm really excited about this outfit. I apologize for the glare in my glasses, but I usually put contact lens for this bit, but I haven't done that today yet. So I'm really happy with how it came out. I haven't worn it out to the cinema yet. I wore it for the photos and the kind of footage and stuff, but I didn't want to wear it a bunch because obviously I haven't gone to see the movie yet, and I don't want to get it all sweaty and stuff before I actually go out to see the film. I'm really excited to see it. I can't wait, and I'm really excited to have an outfit. It definitely screams Barbie, largely inspired in the 60s because obviously the Barbie came out in '59. So I definitely wanted to draw inspiration from that era. And I'm really excited because I do have 3 pieces that I can wear together or separately. Let's get into the kind of things that went well and the things that maybe I would change in the future. So with the top, I really like the ribbon. I like the ribbon placement a lot better than if it was further down. I ended up leaving it at the length that it's supposed to be, but I'm still not 100% sure about it. I asked my partner and he thought that it was the right length, and I'm still not sure. I don't hate it, I just am not sure I like it, and I'm not sure if I want it to be shorter, but I still haven't decided on that. Like, I don't have a overwhelming, like, no, I definitely need it to be shorter. Like, I really am so undecided, which doesn't really happen that often to me. I normally have a very clear vision. Like, the fit is amazing. I love the length of the sleeves. I really love the rickrack detail on the sleeves. I think that's a really cute detail that I am probably going to start adding to a lot of things from now on. I love the buttons at the back. I know that a lot of people struggle with buttons on the back and they prefer zippers. And it's really interesting because in the vintage community, this is a really common thing because obviously it was just more common to have buttons down the back than zippers. A lot of people have trouble with that. They'll like complain about it. They think it's really difficult to work, and I actually think it's easier. Like, I prefer buttons down the back, and I thought that the alteration was really easy and went really smoothly, and I really didn't expect it to. I thought it was going to be a little bit more challenging because I've had trouble with this in the past. I think that just means that I've learned from the things in the past that I did wrong with adding button placket. I'm happy with how much I removed from the neckline. I think now it sits really nicely. And I do have to transfer those things onto the pattern. I still haven't done that. Or maybe make an alternate pattern where I add all of those changes. The only issue, qualm that I have with it, apart from obviously what I just mentioned with being unsure about the length, but I feel like that's something that I need to kind of wear it with different outfits and like out and about in my life, and then I'll have a better sense of it. So the only issue that I really have with it is the fabric, because the fabric is quite warm because it's 100% polyester. I don't think this would be an issue for other people. I live in Portugal and it is the summer, so it's quite warm here, and I also personally have a hard time regulating my body temperature. So I find that I prefer cottons and things that are, you know, natural fibers that are more breathable, and I definitely think that it's something that I'm going to get a lot of wear out of in like probably around autumn and spring, and also maybe in winter because I can layer it with other things. Food's arrived. For the shorts, I absolutely love them. They fit like a glove. I'm really happy with the amount that I added to the length because they do not ride up. I like the pockets, love the pocket placement. I think the little rickrack around the pockets is amazing, super cute, and I think the rickrack around the hem is also really, really cute. I think the only thing I could have done differently with the shorts is I could have made the zipper a little bit bigger. So like the zipper opening, I could have made that bigger just to make it a little bit easier to put on and take off. And the other thing like about just generally the outfit is I find that on camera it looks a lot more like I have sun damage on the outfit, but in real life, like in person, your eyes don't really pick up on that as much. Thank you. I thought that I'd done a really good job because my eyes couldn't pick up on it anymore, but apparently not. Apparently it's still visible on camera, which is really bummer because I'm a content creator and that's kind of the point of a lot of the things that I make that are like themed around, you know, whatever, you know, cosplays or subtle bounds and things like that, is that I'm gonna wear them on camera. But also, again, it was something that I made on a whim with some fabric that I had in my stash, so overall, I'm really happy with them. I think I am going to wear them in my life. For the hat, I did have a slight issue with, I forgot what my seam allowance was. It has a little bump on the back, but considering that it's my second hat ever that I've ever made, it's pretty good. I really love the embellishments that I added. I'm really happy with the sturdiness of the fabric, so having added the fusible and the regular interfacing I think was a really good choice. So overall, I'm really happy with everything that I made. I'm really excited to wear it to the cinema. So yes, that's it for me for today. I'm gonna go and have my little happy meal now. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.